Hi, my name's Scott Acord, and I'm in Los Angeles, and I'm here with.
TJ Roseberry.
And where are you, TJ?
I'm in Anchorage, Alaska.
And are you from up there?
No, I'm a little bit of a wanderer. I grew up in Virginia in the Blue Ridge Mountains and North Carolina, and then I went to New Orleans when I was about 19, and I lived there. That's where I grew up the most. I lived like about 18 years there, and then I've lived over in Europe and in Southeast Asia, and I've lived in California, I've lived in Texas, I've lived in Nevada, I've lived in New York, I've lived in a lot of different places.
Yeah, that's fun though. You got to see the country and experience it uh, as a community member rather than just a tourist or a visitor.
Yeah, I get really bored staying in the same place.
Yeah,
Like, I don't know. I always want to see new things, and that's the difficult problem with how things are now is I can't just get up and go like I used to. And
and
so,
and what is going on right now that keeps you from that?
um, can you bring her over here? Uh, I have COVID long haulers, and I've had it 4 times as of August the 4th of last year. I got my fourth infection.
So you've had wait,
And
hold on one second. You've had COVID 4 times.
I had it of March of 2020 when I got it in Key West when it was brand new and no one knew what was going on. And you could only get tests if you had like $600 and go to the private doctors because it wasn't available at the health department or anything, which I thought that was kind of messed up. There's been a lot of politics with this from the get go. And then I got it in October 25th or 26th of 2020 when I was in South Dakota. That one almost took me out, and I've not been the same since that one. And then I got it again January the 29th when I flew to Anchorage and I only took my mask off one time in the Seattle airport to have a cappuccino because I love cappuccinos, especially when it has a lot of foam. And then I got it. I tested positive on August the 4th, 2021, after visiting my aunt who was vaccinated. And that one was not a big deal. I got the monoclonal antibodies immediately, and it didn't make a difference. I was already really sick. And then March the 12th was of 2021, I got the vaccine. But since I hadn't gotten over my last infection and my body was still inflamed, I hadn't gotten over my second or third infection. I was still really dealing with a lot. And they said long COVID could be helped by getting the vaccine. And I got way worse. 2 weeks later, I had like what they call a mini stroke, and the
Oh,
right side of my body didn't work. And I had the worst headache of my life. I thought, told them, they said I was screaming for them to just kill me. And but it didn't last that long. Like usually migraines I get last for hours. And then the right side of my body didn't work. And then all the doctors were telling me, I was in the hospital and they were telling me it was psychosomatic. And they literally came and asked me to check myself into the mental ward. And I told them, I'm like, well, if I only got anxiety on one half of my body, I would agree with you. But like, I know the difference between anxiety and what I'm going through now. And I was gaslit really badly by the medical community up here in Alaska. And it's not gotten any better either because I was at the ER in May this year because I had seizures and possibly another one of those mini strokes. And I went to the ER and they had no idea what long COVID was. The ER nurse like, I've never heard of it. I don't read the news. I'm not political, blah blah blah. I'm like, this isn't politics. This is your medical profession and you should know about this by now. It's affecting millions of people and it's only going to get worse and you need to know about it. And The ER doctor didn't care about my medical records or nothing, wouldn't give me a steroid shot, wouldn't, was basically worthless. And I even had all my medical records with me because I'm used to this problem. Um, in a weird and bizarre way, that stupid vaccine triggered my lupus that I had underlying that I didn't know about. And that's why I didn't make antibodies to COVID. And I think this is a huge thing. If someone who's just had COVID, they need to get tested and see if they make antibodies. And if they don't, they need to really discuss with their doctor if getting the vaccine could trigger their underlying disease. So now I'm dealing with lupus, and it's really aggressive, and it affects my brain, it affects my memory, and I don't know which is COVID and which is lupus, and the doctors don't know. And I've got like pre-dementia symptoms happening, and it's terrifying. I woke up last week and didn't know where I was for a few seconds, and I had this crazy fear. I don't know if you've ever had sleep paralysis when you
Mm-mm.
wake up and you can't. I've had that a few times, but it's been years ago. But it was like my brain did that. I was completely awake and I could move, but I didn't know where I was. And it was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And my sense of time doesn't make any sense anymore. Like something that happened yesterday, it could have been a year ago or a week ago. It's like time doesn't have any sense in my brain anymore. I don't know how to explain it without sounding like I take acid every day, but it's really weird. And but it's interesting because it's like our concept of time, we're the ones that made it up. Like time doesn't have a past, present, and future. It's just I don't know. I've been learning I've been learning a lot with this being sick like this, that a lot of things that I thought I knew I don't know anything about. But I'm rambling.
That's okay. I have a question or a couple of questions I want to ask you. One is like, what was your life like? I know that you would get bored living in a place and you would move, but what was your life like pre getting sick with COVID? Like,
Well, it wasn't like I was moving. I would do traveling bartending. So I'd have my base in Alaska.
okay,
And then in the winter, I would go to South Dakota and bartend for hunting season because there's good money. And then I would go down to the Florida Keys. I went there to bartend, and my best friend's there now. And I got a great set of friends down there. But, and then, you know, I really liked having that lifestyle. And then I left the country in 2015 to go for 2 months for a yoga training, and I didn't come back for over 2 years. And I just gave all my stuff away. And it's just funny that I went from being someone who would run 10 miles about 3 times a week. I did 500 squats a day. I did over 100 push ups a day. I used to be like jacked, like I had all these muscles, even had that crazy muscle in here and on the arms. And like I was determined to always be strong because of other things that happened in my life. And I just, you know, um, I never saw myself as someone who couldn't even walk up some stairs. Or when I was real bad after that stroke vaccine thing, I had to pee in a bucket by my bed, and I couldn't. I had to crawl to get to the bathroom. Um, it was a really scary time, and I was deteriorating really badly, and my roommates were scared I was going to die. And the neurologist refused to see me unless I went to see a psychologist or psychiatrist. But that was a 6 month wait, and I didn't have 6 months to wait. So I had to do my own research, and that's how I ended up finding about the Vanderbilt Clinic. The day it opened, I called, and I was like, what have I got to do to get in this? And I had to give up my insurance in Alaska get this other insurance through the Affordable Care Act. And by the way, I want to give props to Obama, because without that stuff, I'd be dead now, because I wouldn't be able to have insurance. But I went to the Vanderbilt clinic, and I didn't know anybody, and I was physically, wasn't wise to live alone, but I had either that or just deteriorate here, and I didn't know what was going to happen. And they took me seriously. Um, uh, I did get a spinal tap because I got worse off again. I had crazy pain. It felt like someone was taking my leg muscles and just like, how string cheese pulls apart? Feels like someone was doing that with my muscles, and it was just the worst pain I've ever had in my life. Like, I was like, I wanted my legs cut off, because I know that sounds dramatic, but I never had pain like that, and I've had some pain in my life, and it was just, it wouldn't stop, and it was crazy, and I was like, you know, at one, I even looked into assisted suicide. Like, I thought about suicide, not because I was depressed, because I couldn't handle the pain. And when they finally did a spinal tap, my roommate was friend with a doctor that used to like have residency at the hospital. It was Providence. She called and spoke to somebody there that she knew, and they gave me a spinal tap, and it showed that I had inflammation in my spine. I had high protein and high glucose. And it was like, finally someone, like, oh, because I have a history of depression and anxiety, and they discriminated against me because of that. And lots of other COVID people that I've been talking to had the same experience. If you have any history of anxiety or depression, doctors, if they don't know what's wrong with you, they just go, oh, it's that. And meanwhile, you deteriorate and get worse and worse. So I think there's a huge problem with that in this country.
Yeah, I think we all know when something is not right with our body. We live in this body every day. And I just want to say, I don't know how old you are, but you look young and you look healthy. So I'm sure that they look at you and I'm sure they don't believe you. And I've talked to a few people now with long COVID. They all look healthy. You were all really energetic people prior to getting sick, and now it is you are living, you know, it seems like in the bed or in the house these days.
Yeah. Um, Whenever I do stuff, I have to really be careful not to overdo it, um, or I'll get flared up, and then stuck in bed for a week or two, and in a lot of pain. But I have learned, it's taken me a while, because before, anytime I'd feel good, I'd be like, all right, I need to do all this stuff while I feel good, and that would just set me back even worse. So how I try to remember myself, I don't know if you ever had iPhones, and when they start getting the battery bad, you have to keep them plugged in or it'll just die.
Right.
I try to think of my body as that way, as it's got a bad battery and I got to keep it plugged in. So if I unplug it and do something, do it a little bit and then get back plugged in, instead of like running my battery down completely.
Yeah.
And that's helped a lot. I also have learned how to give myself Toradol shots, which is a strong anti-inflammatory, and that's helped me not have to go to the ER. And it's hard to give yourself a big old jab, but I'm doing things I never thought I could do, because when you have to, you do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's remarkable about being a human, is our ability to adapt to some really difficult crap. And I mean, it's I used to be terrified of needles, and now I have my biologics that I have to do every week, and then when I'm got to do stuff, I give myself Toradol shots.
And
And
what's a day like for you right now?
uh, a day right now. Well, I have a friend who's from Ukraine that we've been trying to get into university, so that's mainly been my focus, is trying to get her funding and um, so she could start school in the fall. But like, I have my, I don't eat a lot. I find food makes me feel worse. Um, I drink a lot of herbal tea and collagen and stuff to help with my joints and things like that. But uh, I don't do any things that I used to do. Like, I can't go run. When I go to the grocery store, I put on the N95 that goes behind the head. So it's like, because I'm terrified of getting COVID again. And um, my days are, and then a lot of times, like, my brain, I can't, I used to love to read, but it's hard for me to do that anymore. I've read one book in 2 years when I used to read all the time. Even in grammar school, I got a trophy for reading because I just love reading. And so I watch a lot of Netflix now, and I find that watching really dark stuff makes me feel better.
What are you watching right now?
Actually, a show called Dark. It's a German show, but it's really good. Oh, it's really cool. It's about time, and I find that really fascinating because I'm having such a difficult time with time that it's nice to watch this horror thing. It's like a horror movie meets Back to the Future meets a Mexican telenovela. That's the Dark show.
Fun. I
Yeah.
just listening to you, and you're describing like your symptoms and all of that. It almost seems like your body is aging rapidly. Like you're, I don't know how old you are again, but it's like you're 75 years old. Many
Oh
strokes,
yeah.
no, you chronic fatigue or however you would describe that. All of these other symptoms.
That's also I've got osteoporosis now too, and degenerative disc disease, and I had degenerative disc disease, but I didn't realize that's probably tied to other stuff. But I'd always been able to control the problems with it because I worked out all the time and ate super healthy. And now I can't do that. I have sometimes I'll turn my neck this way just a little bit, and this pain will just shoot down because I've got a pinched nerve because the vertebrates are just collapsing on themselves. And that's another thing I got to do. A crazy thing that happens is my veins get inflamed, and they're not right now, but they'll stick out way out like big fat worms. And in my legs and on my feet, they stick out. They'll stick out real crazy big when I'm inflamed, and they'll actually throb and hurt. And my vascular doctor said she has never seen anything like that before, and it's really crazy. But they got to take out the big veins in my legs now. But they can't do that because I'm on 3 immune suppressants, so I don't really heal. So it's just a weird situation to be in. I'm having to wear like old people those compression socks. I have to wear those so the blood doesn't pool. I have to take aspirin every day so I don't have another stroke. Um, I'm on so many medications. Uh, I've gotten off some uh, because I just don't want to be on pain medicine, and I don't want to be. They kept on trying to put me on antidepressants, and I'm like, I don't want to be on anything I don't have to be on.
Yeah.
And but then I get my nerves are so damaged that my palms of my hands will get red. Again, if I didn't have witnesses, I would think I was just in psychosis because it's so crazy what's happening. And I repeatedly will ask people, I'm like, are you seeing this? Or am I just really, is this it? Have I literally gotten to the point where I've lost my mind? And they're like, no. And like my hands get red. So I have to and they get itchy. And so I have to take medicines for the nerve damage. And it's just, you have your normal things that, lung damage, scarring, and all this other stuff, and then getting out of breath. But then you have weird stuff like that happening where you're like, okay, I'm losing my mind. And It's a lot.
Are you keeping a symptoms journal or something and photographing any of these things?
I have photographed my symptoms journal. I forgot to
Well, it's not too
I
late.
forget to. Yeah, I finally get a daily planner because keeping stuff on my phone for reminders isn't working anymore. Because I forget to look at my phone. And yeah, and the funny thing is I have a lot of the same symptoms as the another person you interviewed, Suzanne. Me and her have a lot of the same stuff going on, and it's really bizarre. But what really sucks though is like the doctors just when they don't know what to do. I rather them just say we don't know instead of like, well, blah 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 blah.
What? So let's talk about that because I work in healthcare, and what would you like to say to doctors for someone who's like you for those who are dealing with long COVID?
First, I want to thank the awesome doctors that are out there and do care. And I understand that they get burned out and it's just too overwhelming to. I think that's why a lot of doctors are just like, they might seem like they don't care. I think we have a severe lack of, we need more doctors and nurses and healthcare professionals, but we also need to make medical school and things like that way more affordable so we can get people who might not financially otherwise be able to go into the medical field but are very empathetic and want to help people. Those people need to become doctors, not people that just want to make a lot of money. And the way it's structured in our country, it's always seems to be about money. And when you do find a really good doctor who cares, you want to hold on to him. And that shouldn't be the anomaly. The anomaly should be someone who doesn't care. That's my opinion. But what was the question?
What would you like to say to the healthcare industry? Like
Educate yourself about this COVID stuff, and that there needs to be more of a universal health care going on where things are more cohesive instead of like trying. It's impossible to have all hospitals on the same page because everyone's doing their own thing. And I think doctors, there should be no reason in hell today that no one doesn't know about long COVID. There's no reason. It's been 2 years. Like, and it's the responsibility for the hospitals and healthcare people that are employing the doctors and nurses to make sure that they're trained. And I think there needs to be, every year you need to make sure that they're getting the newest training and what's going on because so many things are so outdated what people are doing. And not just with COVID, but with other diseases. Like I've had to research everything and bring it to my doctors and educate my doctors. Every single doctor I've had to educate. And that's tiring. When you're already like chronically fatigued, thinking makes me tired. Like just having a conversation makes me tired. So it's like when you have sick people coming to you to get better and then they have to also explain to you everything about it and then you still don't believe them, I think that needs to change. And I understand doctors get skeptical and things like that, but they need to stop just thinking everything's mental health and stop ostracizing people who with mental health issues and not believing them when they come to them and say something's wrong and it's not my mental health. They need to be last resort, as you say, it's mental health. You make sure you check every box and make sure everything is not like there can't be any other reason before you say it's mental health because there's people that are having serious issues like this, like Suzanne with her heart. She's got some serious stuff going on, and they were trying to tell her it was just anxiety. What if she had a heart attack or something? How many people have died because they said it's anxiety when it was a heart attack, you know? But anyways, I digress a lot.
That's all right. Do you are there certain are there things that trigger some of your symptoms? I know like fatigue probably is just always waiting, to show its ugly head. But like, what about like you talked about pre-dementia? Are there things that maybe set that up where it triggers it, or I'm not even sure how to ask that question, I guess.
That's a whole other thing I've never had to deal with, and it's recently accelerating. So I have no idea about that. That's a whole. But other things that trigger for me is foods. Foods are very triggering. Stress is very triggering. Sleep. If I don't get sleep, that's like one of the worst things. Like I need 8, 9 hours of sleep because my body is attacking itself. It needs time when it's sleeping to repair,
Yeah.
you know. And so, but the problem is I get insomnia sometimes, and you can take medicine to try to like. It's supposed to make you sleep. I even have like a Lunesta for emergencies, but the last time I took it, I had crazy nightmares. So I'm not ever taking that again. But sleep is very bad. I feel like the more you're in the city, pollution is very affects me a lot more now. Like I need fresh air. Um, I got to drink a ton of water. Uh, oh, what else is triggering? Reading the news probably is triggering. But I think right now reading the news will give anybody like a migraine. Um, I can't do white lights so much, like in shopping centers and stuff. The white light bothers me.
What about
Um,
sunlight?
I can't have. Oh, that's the craziest thing because of now this lupus. Last summer I was in Nashville and I could go out in the sun and it was okay. Now if I go out in the sun, even just I had 10 minutes where it was just a little bit on my leg and it broke out into this raised lumpy flesh red, and I can't be out in the sun at all. So I'm basically a vampire that drinks tea. I don't drink blood. I drink tea.
But you live in Alaska, or you're living there
And
now, and so it's midnight sun.
yeah, it's crazy. I mean, winter was easy, but the cold is more difficult for me to handle now than before. I used to love the cold, and I used to love the heat. I can't do either now. I can't do extreme cold, and I can't do the heat. The heat just makes me feel like, oof. The heat can make me feel nauseous. Everything makes me nauseous now. It seems like, um, and I vomit. There's about a couple times a week I have a day of vomiting, and that's always fun. And so you're catching me where I don't look so bad, but there's days where I look like a zombie. Um, and I kind of joke that I am a zombie, but yeah, it's like a twilight zone of weirdness. But there's also been bright things too. Like I want to emphasize that even in the worst situations, there's good stuff you can get out of it. Like I now have understanding of what my grandma went through with Alzheimer's that I didn't have before, and how awful that was for her. I understand how many people are silently suffering now that maybe I didn't know. Like, you never know if someone's grumpy. They could be like in a lot of pain and just not saying anything. And I think it's made me way more understanding, and also understanding to myself. I used to be way hard on myself, or if I gain a pound or something, if I like, didn't work out. Now I'm like, man, I love you, body. I'm sorry I was crappy to you all these years. You're amazing. Don't give up.
Well, I love that you found some bright spots in all of this. I do love that.
You have to. You don't. The reason why I do is because I'm scared of what will happen if I don't. Like if I don't find these bright spots, I, I'm a suicide survivor 20 years ago, and I was in a coma for 3 days, and I've had several suicide attempts, and I know that I must find the brightness or the darkness will get me. And
I'm the same. I have to find the brightness. Do you live alone?
no, I used to before I got sick, and I really love living alone because I love people, but I also don't, and I need to get away from people because I feel like I'm really sensitive to other people's energy, and I get drained, and I just need to be away from most people. Just a few people that I can be around, like my dog and my friend. I like being around them. They like give me energy. But a lot of other people, I have to have bits and pieces. But um, now it's kind of dangerous if I live alone because I could have a seizure and hit my head or whatnot. Um, but yeah, family. My friends are my family. My family are those born again. How do you say it? Pentecostal.
Uh huh.
Like everything you do, you're going to go to hell for. And we've never seen eye to eye ever since I was young. I was My first crush was on someone who was black, and that was a big no no. And like they just, I don't have anything in common with them except maybe some DNA. But it's been really interesting to like be chronically ill, and man, I just want a mom. I want a mom to hold me, um, and tell me it's going to be okay. And then I realized that like I wrote a poem about Mother Earth being my mother, and it's beautiful and all, but damn, sometimes I wish I just had a badass mom to be like, it's okay, yell at the doctors for me. But I've been on my own since I was a teenager, and I've had to be my own mom and dad and everything else in between. But I always thought it was going to get easier, you know. If I just get through my childhood, then I'll have I didn't have a childhood, so my adulthood was going to be my childhood, and I wanted to go see as much as the world as possible and do as much as possible. And now that's been kind of changed, and this is my path now. And it's a big learning lesson. I'm learning a lot. I'm getting a PhD in life right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good doctoral program, I think.
It's brutal,
It's brutal. Yeah, it's true. Well,
but
I mean, unfortunately, we don't know much about long COVID, I don't think, right now. So
we
hopefully we'll
do.
understand it enough that we can get you out of this, out of the house and better.
I'm not sure if the things going on with me are too late because of my lupus is real aggressive. Um, but I'm hoping that like other people don't that if they get COVID now, they don't have to go through what we went through, with the first wave. And life is brutal, but it's also really beautiful. And I've always wanted to like really live. And I think of life as a heartbeat. It's like has its ups and downs, and you don't want to flatline because that's not living.
Mm-mm.
And yeah, my life is seriously up and down, and it's. But the down parts is I think is where I learn the most, and learn most about what it's to be human, and to be a human is such a beautiful experience. Like I could have been born a cockroach or something, and I'm very lucky to be born a human. And my path is to have these crazy experiences and to make sense of them and find something beautiful from them. And I find that really incredibly beautiful too. And not to say I don't just cry sometimes and mourn the person I used to be. And I'm not scared about the future. Sorry. The future gets really hard to talk about because I don't know if I have 5 years, 10 years, 20, 20 seems like a real stretch, um, but I know I can't think of it that much too hard because it's too terrifying. So I go back to my day to day. Get through this day. Let's get through this month. And then if the month's too much, let's get through this week. If the week's too much, let's get through this day. If this day's too much, let's get through this hour. And if you break it down like that, sometimes down to minutes, if you have to, make a way forward. And the key is to just try to keep going forward and not let all this stuff drag me down. And because it's terrifying. Like the thing that I thought before, the thing that terrified me the most was the crazy pain, but it's my memory. I'm losing my mind. Um, it's I never thought I would be dealing with that until way older. But I make a joke and tell my friend that I'm an old person. I'm like a 90-year-old, so I'm doing good. And
See, it's a bright spot. You look great for
yeah,
90.
thank you. I'm actually 107. I just
Oh,
say
okay.
90. I also have a lot more understanding for elderly people and how they must feel to be discarded and go through the final stages of their life with not a lot of support and a lot of people caring. And I think that's been very eye opening for me. And I never realized how much women of color go through just trying to get a diagnosis for lupus. Usually it's like a 6 year wait. And just like I've been learning so much about my fellow humans and about myself. So I'm just trying to look at this as I'm just in this weird either simulation or I'm a character in this Netflix bad plot movie that's not really believable. I don't think if they wrote this show that it would get past the writers because they'd be like, no one would believe that. And that's with everything, with the COVID, with our government, with everything going on. You would 10 years ago, you wouldn't believe that this could happen.
Yeah.
5 years ago, you wouldn't believe that our Secret Service was in on an insurrection on our democracy. Like, woo!
Yeah.
But
It's scary. It's scary outside.
yeah, and that's the benefit of being super ill. It's like, well, what else can they do though? But, I'm super glad I got to have my teenage years when I did.
Yeah. Me too. Well, I'm so sorry you're going through this. My heart breaks for you and for everybody dealing with this. I can't imagine, and I'm terrified of getting COVID, so that I don't
Don't get it.
get
Don't get
long
it.
COVID, because it
Don't get it.
everyone I've talked to, it's a horrible thing.
Don't get it. And if you do, get that Plaxivoid immediately and take 300,000 IUs of vitamin D. You can either do that over one dose or over a course of 5 days, 60,000 a day. I did a lot of research on it and they did these studies and it's safe. But after that, you don't do it anymore. But that will help prevent you getting long COVID too.
Oh wow.
Um, Most Americans are vitamin D deficient because even when you're out in the sun and wearing sunscreen, you're not getting what you need. And so yeah, but I don't want people's heart to break for me. Like I want to I want my when I die, I want my story to make people feel happy, you know?
Yeah.
Like this what I'm going through now is nothing compared to my childhood or the abusive relationship I was in. There's nothing. COVID sucks, lupus sucks, but it's nothing compared to what I've already gone through. So this is just maybe a rehashing to make sure that I'm keeping on my spiritual path.
Yeah.
So
Well, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to share your story with us. And I hope when people hear it, they will, I not just hope, I'm sure they'll get a lot out of this, whether they're there to not feel alone, to know they're not crazy, to know that others are going through this and there are allies out there for them.
yeah, and if anybody's going through it, I, there's good people on Twitter. There's some really bad people on Twitter, like Survivor Corps. I'd stay away from that grifting stuff. But like, there's people out there that I've met that are just working hard to just try to find solutions for people like me without any like accolades or anything. And I find it very amazing how many people out there that do care. And it can seem like people don't care because that's negative, takes up so much energy and needs attention and all this, but like goodness doesn't need any recognition. It just is, and it gets overlooked a lot. And I think I know there's more love and goodness out there than there is all this stuff that we're exposed to on a daily basis. And if someone's out there, just reach out, And I'm very grateful for Dr. Jackson and everyone at the Vanderbilt survivorship. They have been incredible with doing the support group. They do the support group every week, and that has been an anchor in my life and other people's life. And I strongly, highly recommend getting in a group because when you share with people and you don't have to explain, they just know. It's so much easier, and you just feel less alone and less like something's wrong with you or you're losing your mind, and it helps a lot. But anyways,
Well, thank you, and keep searching for the bright spots.
yeah, you too. And Scott, it was really nice to meet
So
you.
nice to meet you.